The United States of America, the most powerful economy the world has ever known, now stands on a mountain of debt so large that even its defenders struggle to comprehend the numbers. More than $34 trillion owed and climbing by the second. A number so vast it no longer feels real. But this debt is real, and its consequences may shape the future not just of America, but of the entire global system. The question no longer whispered in back rooms, but openly debated in Congress, on Wall Street, and in households across the nation, is this: can America avert an imminent economic collapse? Or is the debt crisis the ticking clock that history has been warning us about all along? To understand how serious this moment is, we must strip away politics, ideology, and comforting myths, and look at the raw mechanics of how debt works. The U.S. government spends far more than it collects in taxes every single year. That gap is covered by borrowing, issuing treasury bonds that are purchased by investors, institutions, foreign governments, and the American people themselves. For decades, this system worked because the U.S. dollar was trusted, American growth was strong, and interest rates were relatively manageable. Debt grew, but so did confidence. What has changed is the speed, the scale, and the cost of that debt. Interest payments alone are now one of the largest expenses in the federal budget, rivaling military spending. Money that produces nothing, builds nothing, and feeds no one, just payments to service past obligations. As interest rates rise, that burden compounds. Every new dollar borrowed becomes more expensive than the last. It is the financial equivalent of a credit card, where the minimum payment grows faster than your income. At first, you adjust. Then you struggle. Eventually, something breaks. Historically, nations facing debt crises have had limited options. They can raise taxes, cut spending, inflate the currency, default outright, or rely on extraordinary economic growth to outrun the problem. America has relied on the last option for decades. Growth powered by innovation, immigration, global trade, and consumer confidence. But growth alone may no longer be enough. Demographics are shifting. The population is aging. Productivity gains are slowing. Entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare consume ever larger shares of the budget. These are not future problems. They are happening now. Some argue that America is different, that it can never truly collapse because it controls its own currency, that it can always print more money. And yes, the United States does have a unique advantage. The dollar remains the world's reserve currency, and U.S. Treasury bonds are still considered one of the safest assets on Earth. But this privilege is not permanent. It is based on trust. Trust that America will manage its finances responsibly, that inflation will remain under control, and that political institutions will function. Once trust erodes, it does not return easily. We have already seen warning signs. Inflation surged to levels not seen in decades, eroding savings and squeezing working families. Political brinkmanship over the debt ceiling has brought the government to the edge of default multiple times, shaking global markets. Credit rating agencies have begun issuing downgrades, not because America cannot pay today, but because of the growing risk that it may choose not to, or may be unable to, without severe consequences. And here is where the crisis becomes truly dangerous. The U.S. debt is not just an American problem. It is deeply embedded in the global financial system. Foreign governments hold trillions in U.S. bonds. Banks, pension funds, and insurance companies rely on them as stable collateral. A loss of confidence in U.S. debt would ripple outward, destabilizing currencies, trade, and markets worldwide. The collapse would not be sudden like a bomb, but slow, grinding, and relentless. Capital fleeing, borrowing costs rising, standards of living declining. If you're finding this analysis valuable so far, take a moment to like the video. It helps this channel bring deeper, honest history and economics to more people. And if you care about understanding the forces shaping our future, consider subscribing to History Tale. The uncomfortable truth is that no political party has clean hands in this crisis. The debt has ballooned under presidents and Congresses of both parties, driven by wars, tax cuts, stimulus programs, and unfunded promises. Each generation has passed the bill to the next, assuming growth would cover the cost. Now the bill has arrived, and it is demanding attention. Some policymakers propose austerity, cutting spending dramatically to rein in deficits. But austerity carries its own risks. Slash spending too quickly, and you risk recession or even depression. Reduce social programs, and millions may fall into poverty. Others argue for higher taxes, especially on the wealthy and corporations. But tax increases alone cannot close the gap without political backlash and potential capital flight. Inflation, once seen as a hidden escape valve, has already shown its destructive power. Print too much money, and the value of the dollar itself comes into question. There is no painless solution, only trade-offs. And history teaches us that nations that delay difficult choices often face far harsher outcomes later. Ancient Rome debased its currency. Weimar Germany printed money until it became worthless. More recently, countries like Argentina and Greece learned that debt crises do not announce themselves with a single dramatic event. They creep in, normalize dysfunction, and then explode when confidence finally snaps. Yet collapse is not inevitable. America still possesses immense strengths, a dynamic private sector, world-leading technology, deep capital markets, a culture of entrepreneurship, and a population that, when united by necessity, has overcome crises before. The question is not whether America has the capacity to avert disaster. It is whether it has the political will. Avoiding collapse would require a long-term, bipartisan strategy, one that combines disciplined spending, targeted tax reform, entitlement restructuring, and policies that genuinely boost productivity and growth. It would require telling voters uncomfortable truths instead of comforting lies. It would require leaders willing to sacrifice short-term popularity for long-term stability. History suggests this is rare, but not impossible. The greatest danger may not be the debt itself, but complacency. The belief that because catastrophe has not yet happened, it never will. Empires rarely fall when everyone expects it. They fall when no one believes it possible. The U.S. debt crisis is not a countdown to tomorrow's collapse, but it is a warning flare lighting the sky. Whether it marks the beginning of reform or the prelude to decline is a choice still being made. If you want more deep cinematic explorations of history's most important turning points, moments where nations stood at the edge, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. And let us know in the comments, do you believe America can avert economic collapse, or is the debt crisis already beyond control? History is watching, and so are we.